You're tuned in to our special Raiding the Crates on DC Radio. We're celebrating DC Radio's 4th anniversary. I'm your host, John Avery, and our first guest on today's show is jazz pianist, composer, producer, author, record label owner, and longtime radio host and creator of the show, the New Urban Jazz Lounge, which airs right before Raiding the Crates on DC Radio. It's Mr. Bob Baldwin. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Hey, John. Nice to see you, brother. Hope you're doing okay up there.
I'm doing fine. Even amidst all the Corona stuff, I'm still fine.
Corona Bob, and the storms, right?
Exactly. What an accomplished career you've had. Since becoming a solo artist in '89, you've released 32 albums, traveled the world again and again and again, written for, arranged for, and worked with just about everybody in the business. And I'm going to drop just a few names if you don't mind. You work with Tom Brown, Grover Washington Jr., Bob James, Phil Perry, Atlantic Starr, Kim Waters, Regina Carter, Freddie Jackson, the Four Tops, Kirk Whalum, Dave Koz, Gerald Albright, Lenny White, and our fellow DC radio host, Mr. Will Downing. I'm sure I left out a few more, but what an impressive list, sir. You've done everything.
Man, it's been a blessing. The journey has been great, and I'm still here, and I'm not done, sir.
What does it take when you go in the studio or on tour with these artists? Is it like, do you prepare a lot, or is it just falls into place?
You know, it depends on the situation. I just kind of let the cats do their thing because I already know by their vibe if the vibe is going to work, so I don't have to pigeonhole them into a certain kind of thing. I do have one story when I worked with Gerald Albright. I redid Funkin' for Jamaica back in early 2000.
Yes.
We were on the road in Las Vegas, and I hired Gerald to do the session. We booked the session out in Las Vegas at the studio I'd never heard of. And I gave Gerald, I didn't even give Gerald a track to listen to. Here's what we did. I told Gerald the song was in C minor. You know the song from, back in the day. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to press record, and whatever you feel, you play, and that's how we're going to roll. So I pressed record, and that brother knocked that thing out one take. And check out the solo on Funkin' for Jamaica at the very end. It's one take. Gerald just went for it.
He did the Frank Sinatra, walk in the studio one time, and I'm walking out.
One time without even listening. That was
not even listening. That's amazing.
Man, he just went for it.
That is amazing. Now, I've read that you are known as the Ray Charles of independent contemporary jazz and soul music. Please explain what that means to the audience.
Well, Ray Charles was an innovator in terms of owning his recordings, which was unheard of back in the 60s and 70s. Of course, Prince followed that up in the 90s, putting the symbol on his head. James Brown was a proponent of owning their masters, and I've just kind of followed in the same suit. I think in my genre, not too many cats own the percentage of catalog that I do. And I take pride in that because it gives me an opportunity to pass something down to my family when I transition. And without doing that, if I don't own the masters, then I can't control how those recordings are going to be distributed and paid. So it's a real big deal for me.
Well, now you own, of the 32 albums, I think I read that you own 27 or 28 of the masters?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is amazing.
I kind of made that. I made up my mind back in the early 90s after I had a record deal with Atlantic Jazz. When I looked at the royalty sheet, I'm like, something don't look right. And I realized that they were making a boatload of money and I was just making peanuts. And so that's when I made a decision in the early 90s that I had to figure out how I was going to own the recordings. And, that's been my quest ever since.
That is a lesson that the young rappers and performers of today need to hear.
Yes.
Because you can have all the number one hit records in the world you can, but if you don't own them, you only get money for that time that you recorded and the touring. But then when somebody plays it 30 or 40 years from now, you get nothing.
Absolutely right. And to that point, I think even Kanye West, even a couple of years ago, was trying to buy back one of his earlier masters, and Sony wanted $9 million or something crazy. Jay-Z on one of his first records, they want six-figure $1 million. It's a real thing, and unfortunately, until you own them, and someone else owns your music, then they can control how they're going to distribute it and pay you or not pay you, which is, it's kind of a sad reality, but it is what it is.
It is, but and I want to know Bob, what led you into your interest in radio, and how was the New Urban Jazz Lounge concept created?
Great question. I started radio back in the early 80s when I was in college. I did an internship at my college, which was in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. The college is called Geneva College.
Yep.
And just stuck with me ever since. I actually got into radio before I got into music. And I landed an internship at WBLS in New York, which at the time was the #1 station in the country. And I was under Frankie Crocker and, of course, Percy Sutton, who was the owner at Tuskegee Airmen. That's how I really caught the bug, and I met a young lady there by the name of Pat Prescott, who now works over at the Wave in LA. She ended up going to a station in New York called CD 101.9, and she pretty much broke me in New York at the time, back in the early 90s. So how I started New Urban Jazz was in 2008. 24 stations in 36 months in commercial smooth jazz just disappeared overnight. A lot of those stations were picked up by Clear Channel.
I remember.
And so what happened was that when that void happened, there was no smooth jazz between Boston and Orlando for about 3 or 4 years, except college radio. And that's when I developed the New Urban Jazz Lounge to kind of fill that void. And now we're on 55 stations in 30 plus states, over 450,000 listeners a week. So I'm blessed to still be able to carry the torch. We've been doing it for literally 13 years straight.
Now, I know since the coronavirus started, it's been tumultuous and crazy, but I suppose you're back on tour again, right? How is it feeling to be out on the road again?
Funny you should ask. Prior to my show in Annapolis on August 15th, I hadn't been on the road in almost a year, about 11 months. Prior to that, last show was in September in Atlanta. So it was good to be back on the road, and more importantly, it was good that people came out to see me. I think we all got a little break just getting out the house. And so I've got some shows coming up in Atlanta on September 2nd, Chicago October 1st, and also Nashville November 14th, Toledo September 11th. If you want to check out the tour page, it's bobbaldwin.com. But yeah, I'm glad to be back on the road. Thankfully, that wasn't my bread and butter, because I saw a lot of my friends suffer financially from that whole situation. I've seen guys get the entire tours get wiped out, and they lost a boatload of money. So to the point of owning the masters, thank God for royalties.
Smart man. Smart in the beginning.
I was fortunate. I was fortunate.
Now, Bob, as I told you before, I am a huge fan of your show. I listen to it almost every week because it comes on right before my show. So I want to make sure I get the what's going on in the jazz field before I come on. And I always think when I play jazz, and I'm kind of scared when I do it because you come before me. I always think, what would Bob play? So I always keep you in mind. What's next for Bob Baldwin?
I mean, as far as radio?
Radio, tours, music?
Well, as far as music, I have a live record coming out. I did a live stream last year, and we've transferred it to audio, and we're going to be releasing vinyl sometime in November. My first vinyl in 30 years, which I'm very excited about. And also we're working on an invention in the luggage field. I got a real hip bag that's going to be coming out, God willing, sometime next year. It would have been out this year if it wasn't for the coronavirus. But those are the two things I'm working on futuristically.
I'm gonna keep looking for that bag because I might need me a bag.
Trust me, you're gonna need this bag. Because the tech people didn't figure it out, nor the luggage field.
Oh well, I'm gonna need that bag then, and then I'm gonna show it to all my fans, all my people around here, and they're gonna want that bag also.
That's right.
Mr. Baldwin, thank you for dropping by to help us celebrate DC Radio's 4th anniversary.